A function is a rule which maps one number, usually called the input, onto another number, usually called the output. Now we shall use letter X to represent the input and Y to represent the output. So a function can be written as an equation. For example, Y is equal to 3x plus 2. Now this is an example of an equation of a straight line. But it can also be called a linear function. And from what we can see here, this is basically the input and this is the output. So if you plug in -1, then you get 3 multiplied by -1, which is -3 plus 2, which gives you -1. If you plug in 0, 3 multiplied by 0 will be 0, 0 plus 2 will be equal to 2, and so on. So basically changing the value of x changes the value of y. So we have some notations that we usually use for functions. For example, instead of y, you can write f of x. Yeah, so this is called, it's basically a notation for the output. So f of x is equal to 3x plus 2. So what this means is f here is the function, and it takes x, multiplies by 3, and adds 2 to get to the output. So basically this here is the input, and this here is the output. So f represents the function's name. You can use different letters. You can use G, H, I, and so on. Yeah, so if you have different functions, you can use different letters to represent those functions. You can also write a function using a mapping arrow. So you have here a function f such that x is mapped onto 3x plus 2. Yeah, so that's basically what happens. The function f takes each x value and maps it onto 3x plus 2. So basically, this notation here and that notation, they all mean the same thing as that. All right, so now I'm going to walk through some examples of different questions involving this function. So basically here what we'll be doing is just finding the values of functions. So we want to find the value of this function when x is equals to 0. So that will be equal to 0 squared plus 1 over 2, which is just a half. So all you do is substitute 0 in place of x in this function. Now here we substitute 3 in place of x. So 3 squared plus 1 divided by 2. And that will be 10 divided by 2, which will be equal to 5. Number 2, we substitute 2 in place of x. So that will be equal to 2 to the power 2, which will be equal to 4. And here substitute 5 in place of 2, so 2 to the power 5, which will be equal to 32. Okay, moving on. Here we substitute 2 in place of x, so 2 plus 1 over 2 minus 1, which will be 3 over 1. And here you substitute 3 in place of x, so 3 plus 1 over 3 minus 1, which is 4 over 2, and that will be equal to 2. Okay, number 4. So we have this function. Now, when x is equals to a, this function will be equal to 0. So what is the value of a? So we replace a in place of x, we'll have 2a plus 5, and that will be equal to 0. So basically, what we need to do here is just to solve for a. So 2a will be equal to negative 5. So a will be equal to negative 5 divided by 2. And in part B, when x is equals to b, the value of this function is equals to b. So what's the value of b? So we substitute b in place of x. So 2b plus 5 is equals to b. And then we just solve for b. So that will mean that 2b minus b will be equal to negative 5. So b will be equal to negative 5.